is Frisco Independent School District liable for Austin Metcalf's death? And I'm going to talk about a little fact that has come out, and I'm going to talk about a little known law that nobody's really talking about. And when you put these two things together, yes, Frisco ISD is liable. And I'm going to tell you something. You can bet your bottom dollar that the first people that Frisco ISD called when this thing happened was their lawyers, because they have so much potential liability in this case. Okay, so let's get into it. Gray, thank you for watching my channel, Counsel Gray. If you like what you see here, I'd love if you like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and leave a comment. This is my brand new channel, so what I'm planning to do here is talk about trial strategy, talk about popular cases in the news, and try to shed some light on what I think these cases would happen with these cases if they were to go to trial, with the facts that come out, with the evidence, with the witnesses, what I would do at trial. Someone asked me before, what is my background? My background is that I am a seasoned trial attorney. I've been doing this for almost 2 decades. I've done criminal, civil, and everything in between. So that's my background, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so the first thing that we need to talk about really is the fact that where did this thing happen, right? Where did all of this go down? And where it went down was at Kuykendall Stadium, which is, it is owned by the Frisco School District. And you guys know what I'm talking about. This is the Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf case, where 2 17-year-old athletes, one stabbed the other one after a confrontation at a community track event. That community track event happened at Kuykendall Stadium. Okay, so Kuykendall Stadium, it is owned by the Frisco Independent School District, and all 12 of the high schools in that school district, they all share this athletic facility for different sports. I think baseball is there, track is there, football is there. So this is sort of a community gathering place where the schools come to compete against each other. You may remember back in the day where schools went to the other school, right? Like one school was the home, one school was the visitor. This is not that scenario. All of the teams share this one facility, and they do their events at this facility. So this is what it looks like. This is an aerial view of the stadium, and as you can see in this picture, I know it's a little bit blurry, but you can see that this is a multi-sport track, right? So around the exterior, we've got a track, and then on the inside, it looks like that's where they play football. So they're using this real estate to do a lot of things, and I think you can see in the back on the left-hand side that there's a baseball diamond there. Okay, so that's where the event took place. It's a community, it's a county-owned space. It was not at either of the 2 schools. Okay, so 2 of the 12 schools that compete in this space are the Memorial Warriors and the Centennial Titans, right? Austin Metcalf was a student at Memorial, and Karmelo Anthony was a student at Centennial. Okay, so there's this little theory that I think creates a lot of chaos in this case, and the theory is the agency theory. Okay, an agency is a legal relationship where one person, the agent, is authorized to act on behalf of another, called the principal, creating legal consequences for the principal based on the agent's actions. So let me just unpack that a little bit. Basically, it means that if you empower someone else to act on your behalf, you are liable for what they do, the mischief they get into, and the chaos. Now, there are all kinds of caveats to this law, as there are to all laws, but that's the general principle of this law, that if you assign somebody, hire somebody, ask somebody, send somebody, there's a lot of verbs, right? Deputize somebody, empower somebody. There's a lot of verbs that you can use to create this relationship. But here's the thing. It also doesn't even need to be spoken. Okay, but we're not going to talk about that. But as with anything, the law will treat people based on how they behave as opposed to what they say. And so what that means is that even if you don't say, hey, we are in a principal-agent relationship, if your behavior reflects that, the law will treat it as that. So let's look at what happened on this day. Let's set the scene. All right. A and H, obviously this is Austin and Hunter. They are minors and they are manning a tent on behalf of their school or sports team. Now, this is the little fact. This is the little fact that no one is talking about. That a witness has come forward and said that these two boys were not competing that day. They were working the event. Okay. Working the event means that there was some kind of an assignment, possibly some extra credit, possibly some pay, possibly whatever. But a finding of agency doesn't even require that money or benefit changes hands. It just requires an agreement, even if the agreement is unspoken. We'll get into that, okay? But here's the first set of facts. Austin and Hunter are minors, and they are manning a tent on behalf of their school or sports team. Now, I'm going to give you, I'm going to play a tape for you shortly so that you can hear it. Then, while there, they engage with someone that they think is a trespasser, okay? A fight breaks out, and Austin is killed. The victim or the visitor claims self-defense. So the question we're going to talk about today is, could the school, could the team, or could the entire district, right, the entire Frisco ISD be civilly liable to the deceased Austin, to the surviving Hunter, or to what they deem to be a trespasser? And I'll show you why this person is not legally a trespasser shortly. So this is where we're picking up, right? This is the minimal facts that we know. I'm not adding any facts that we don't know. I'm not subtracting any facts that we don't know. Okay, so let's go here. So the question is, were Austin and Hunter acting as agents of the school, of the track team, of the district, whatever, of the coach, whatever it is, right? So how do we know that? Agency only requires two things. And again, I'm about to play a video for you where the good friend of Austin says that they were there because they were working the event. Okay, so let's set that aside for right now. Agency requires two things. The first one is consent for there to be a principal-agent relationship. But remember, it doesn't need to be spoken. You don't need to pinpoint the exact moment that the relationship arose, right? It's very much, if you come to be behaving in this fashion, the law will treat you as that thing, okay? So it requires consent and it requires control, meaning that the principal is in some way in control of the task. And by asking someone to do the task, right? Meaning if the coach or the school or the district asked Austin to man the tent, they are in control of the task because they gave it to him. Okay, so I think that both of these are checked. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through this case as I would make it with the experience that I've got. And obviously other people may come down in different directions on this thing, but I'm just going to tell you what I would do. And I'm going to make out the arguments that I would make using the facts and the evidence that we've got. Also knowing that more will continue to come out and we're not jumping to any conclusions prior to that. Okay, so a good friend of Austin was interviewed by Tamara Neely. Shout out to Tamara Neely. She's a great young girl. She's building a channel. I don't believe what she believes, but she's doing a great job building her channel. Okay. She interviewed one of Austin Metcalf's friends, and I'm going to let you hear what the friend had to say.
Track meet was a JV event, and the only reason why the twins were there was because they were working it.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, makes sense because now this is making sense because the twins, I saw on social media that they were not actually like competing. So it makes sense. They were working the event. So of course they're going to be kind of watching out, making sure that their school tennis protected. I mean, if you've ever, just watching their dad and how attentive he is, you can tell he's really attentive, involved, all that stuff. I can only imagine how his sons are, they have a great father. So I'm sure I can see how that came about.
Okay. So you just heard it. She said that the only reason they were there is because they were working the event. So that establishes the agency. right? The question becomes, why were they working the event? Who asked them to work the event? How did this relationship come into being? That they believed that they and others believed that they were working this event. Okay, I'll show you quite honestly why it almost doesn't matter. Okay, so I want you to think of principal and agency law as the principal is the hand. Now, this spelling of principal is not to be confused with the principal of the school, even though the principal of the school is a principal of some things and also is an agent of the district, etc. Right? But anyway, this is principal in the way of agent principal law. Okay, so I want you to think about the principal as the hand or the body, and the agent is the fingers, right? The agent does the work of the principal. Okay, so, and again, not the principal of the school, the principal. So, for example, one principal could have many, many agents, right? All of the teachers are agents of the principal. If you go to, like your cable company, right? All of the cable technicians who come out to your house, they are all agents of the principal, which is your cable company. Okay, the company is the principal, the worker, the technician, the helper is the agent. Okay, so let's look at agency in action. What does this mean? What are some examples? An employer-employee. That's clear agency, right? That is a contract hired role. That is an agreement that you're going to do this amount of work for me on this date for this amount of money. A school and a coach. Okay, so let me give you some context here of why agency law even exists. It exists, one, because people can't escape liability for something because they had someone else do it for them, right? Also, it allows the principal, in this case, the employer or the school or the business, it allows the principal to scale and multiply, right? If you had to build a business and you had to do everything that needed to be done, there's only 24 hours in your day. But what you can do is you can hire people and you can deploy them into the field to work on behalf of the business, right? So you can scale your business. But the flip side of that, right? That's the benefit. You can scale. But the flip side of it is that as you send these people out into people's homes, you're responsible for what they do when they get there. Okay? Another example is a business and a sales rep. This is the example that I just gave you. Someone comes to your door and they're selling security systems. They are an agent of some company. They are an agent of ADT or Front Point or whoever the security company is. Okay, so if we accept that, the next step is that a student rep who has been asked by the school or by a team, a coach or a teacher to do something is also an agent of the school. Now, Texas has some interesting agency rules, and we're going to get to these in a minute. But this is pretty much accepted that when you empower, deputize, ask, right? Remember that list of verbs that I gave? When you do any of these things, you are creating an agent relationship. Okay? Okay, so if we accept it as true, because we just heard that it was true, Austin and Hunter were working the event. And if that's true, somebody asked them. And that establishes the agency that we're looking for to make the Frisco Independent School District liable for what happens. Okay, so these were the two designated agents that the Frisco Independent School District, through its employees, selected, right? These are the two kids. So the thing about agency is that agency runs up the chain, right? It runs right up the chain of command. Okay, so I want you to look at this graphic that I have here. On the far left is the Frisco ISD. Frisco ISD empowered Memorial High School to educate its students, to educate the students of Frisco. Memorial High School empowered the track coach to teach its students to run and compete in these athletic events. And then it looks like what happened, if we believe what the girl said, and I just played it for you, his good friend, she identified herself as his good friend. She said, the only reason that Hunter and Austin were at the event is because they were working the event. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that at least the track coach empowered them, asked them, suggested to them, recruited them, right? There's a huge list of verbs that can create this relationship. Empowered, deputized, assigned, tasked them with, doesn't matter, Austin and Hunter to man the tent. So what does that even mean? What does it mean to man the tent? What does it mean to work the event? We don't know. How clear was that? And we're going to see that if it's not clear, that enhances the likelihood of principal liability. Right? It's just this murky thing, this murky relationship. Just go down there and man the tent. Right? Whatever that means, just go down there and do it. Okay? So each of these steps is a principal and an agent of the other, right? Memorial High School is an agent of the county. It's also the principal of the track coach and Hunter and Austin. The track coach is the agent of the high school in Frisco, but it's also the principal of Austin and Hunter, right? So everything flows up and downstream. Okay, so here are the people. Here are the people. This guy on the far left, Dr. Waldrop, he is the superintendent of the Frisco Independent School District. Congratulations, sir. The principal of Memorial High School is this woman with the curly hair. The two track coaches are the two beautiful ladies side by side, and their agent is the Metcalf twins. So all of these people, in all of their wisdom, decided that the Metcalf twins were the best agents to represent the district in this event. All right. So this is the chain of command here. All right. So there is this type of agency law that is called negligent delegation. Right? The idea, because you are responsible for what your agent does in the field, there has to be grounds for that liability. One of these grounds, and there are multiple ways for a principal to be liable for the acts of their agent. But one of them is negligent delegation. And this occurs when a person or institution assigns responsibility or authority to someone who is unqualified, untrained, or unprepared to carry it out safely. And that results in harm to others or to themselves. And I'm going to show you in a little while all three of these boys, right, the two that are alive and the one his estate could sue on his behalf, I'm going to show you why all three of them have claims against the Frisco Independent School District. Okay, we're going to walk through their claims one by one. But what negligent delegation says is that you should have never even put this person in the role. Right? It was just the mere delegation. Before they did anything, just picking them was negligent. Okay? So this is an example of an analogy. This is the sort of common analogy, right? Negligent entrustment, negligent delegation, right? All jurisdictions use different language, but it's the same concept. You gave the keys to your car to a toddler, and then, of course, your toddler goes out and not only kills himself, but kills three of your neighbors. That's a negligent delegation. You gave the toddler a task that a toddler cannot do, right? So forget what the toddler actually did. You were liable, you were guilty the moment you put the keys in that person's hands. And so the question becomes, if they gave Austin the responsibility of manning this tent, some things needed to come along with that, okay? They needed to train him on how to do the role, right? Someone described it as he was passing out water to the track athletes and this and that. But he needed to be trained. Were there rules? Were there resources to help him do the job if he got in over his head? Was he trained how to deal with what he perceived to be a trespasser? Now, Incidentally, in another one of my videos, I talked about the fact that these two boys had competed in the same event 10 days prior to this killing. Now, whether or not that's going to come to have anything to do with this, I don't know. But for some reason, this kid, this 17-year-old and his incomplete 17-year-old mind, and that's the problem with the whole case. You've got two incomplete 17-year-old minds, right? Was this really the right kid to assign the task of supervising the area? Okay. Did he have SOPs? Was there a protocol? Did he have resources he could call on, i.e., were there adults in the vicinity whose job it was to supervise him, to supervise the supervisor, right? Was he trained in conflict resolution? Was he told this is the protocol when you think someone doesn't belong under our tent? If not, not only was the delegation of the role to Hunter and Austin negligent, but once he was there, there's another element, which is like failure to train, things like that, right? That's sort of the second piece. Like, okay, even if you hired the right person, as the principal, you are still required to train this person. Okay, the more you can show you trained your agents, the better defense you have against an agency claim, right? But if there's no indication that this person was trained, Frisco ISD is up a creek, okay? So there's another type of liability that I think a lot of people are talking about, which is the negligence-based liability. Now, these are agency and negligence are different routes to create liability, and potentially both of them could stand simultaneously, right? So agency is what I just described, where the agent acts and the principal is therefore liable. In our case, the student confronts a person, right? That is the action that the agent took that led to chaos and catastrophe, right? The deputized or empowered student, Austin and Hunter, right? Because remember the witness, the video that I played, the witness said they were working the event, okay? So these two students confront Karmelo, chaos ensues, the school is liable. That's agency-based liability. There's another layer of liability that a lot of people also talk about is negligence, direct negligence. This is sort of a different path to liability. And this is when the principal fails to act properly, meaning something that the principal did created the problem, okay? So for example, the school fails to supervise or enforce an existing policy. Now, Texas has a narrow interpretation, which is an only operational failure, meaning that there was a policy in place, but operationally, the school did not do the policy. Okay, so let me give you an example of that. Let's say, for example, there were metal detectors, and everybody was supposed to go through these metal detectors. And the school just decided, it's too crowded, it's too hot outside, we've got to get the people in faster. Don't make them go through the metal detectors. That's an operational failure, right? The policy of having the metal detectors was in place, but the school didn't enforce them. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, right? I haven't heard that they had metal detectors, but there certainly were other protocols that existed that they did not do. How do we know that? Because 1 week later, when they had the thing again, all of a sudden, all of their security protocols were in place. So they knew how to do this, right? They knew how to get their employees and their facilities and, you know, whatever equipment they needed in order to man an event like this, or to not man it, but to secure an event like this. They knew how to do it. They just on that particular day, and possibly at most track meets, they just decided, we don't really need to do that. All right, what are the chances? Right, famous last words. Okay, so these are how you get direct negligence, where the principal actually failed to do something. In agency, it's the principal's agent who did something wrong. Okay, either of these are a path. Okay, so I want to talk about what are the actual claims that Karmelo, Austin's estate, and Hunter all have against the memorial warriors, against the school, against the district, right? All the way up the line. Austin's estate. Austin is the one who is dead, unfortunately. Rest in peace. His estate could sue all of those people for negligent supervision. The basis of that claim for him, because you're going to see that claim show up again, but someone else has a different aspect of it. Negligent supervision. The school failed to protect a student in its care. Classic, right? So if Austin's family attorney can make the claim that the school had a duty to protect and failed at that duty, then the school is going to be liable to Austin's family. Now, here's the thing. When someone is on the property of another, that property being a community athletic facility, whatever it is, right? Which is all three of these boys. All three of these boys were on the property of another, okay? So when someone is on the property of another, there's only three legal, or not three legal, but the law recognizes three statuses. The first one is that you're a trespasser. None of these boys were trespassers. Each of them had the same exact right to be in that facility as the others. Now, there's some argument, some rumor that Karmelo may have been suspended at the time. Well, guess what? Just because he was suspended, his right to be on community or county or school district owned property is not stripped from him. Unless his suspension papers specifically said that he cannot go onto county property, then he had as much right as the two brothers to be there. Now, if they try to strip him of the right, if his school tried to strip him of the right to be on anything other than their property, right? You can't prevent somebody from going on somebody else's property. You don't have the authority to do that. So there's no way that one school, and it might be why, if he was suspended, and I have heard mixed views about this, right? And the most reputable ones say, in fact, that he was not suspended. But even if he were, because this is going around, right? Even if he were, he had a right to be at that facility because the school can't strip away his right to be on county property. Okay? That might be why he wasn't under his own tent. Now, some people said that he came to the memorial tent because he had friends. We don't know. We do not know, right? Time will tell. But in terms of whether or not he's lawfully there because he's suspended, yes, he is. He is not a trespasser because he is suspended. Okay? All right. So the other two statuses that the law recognizes, right? The first one is a trespasser. The second one is that you are an invitee. And the third one is that you are a licensee. So I would make the argument that all three of these boys were either invitees or licensees, and whatever one of them was, all three of them were. I'm going to make the argument that they were invitees, and I'll tell you why. An invitee is a person who is on the property of another with permission or in the absence of retracted permission. Okay? An invitee is someone who's on the property of another, meaning they have been asked or invited or allowed onto the property of another for the benefit of the property owner. Okay? So that would be anybody that you invite to come into your space to do a particular thing for you, whether it's to run in your track meet, whether it's to man the table, whether or not it's to be a star athlete on our roster, whether it's to keep our police from having to come and arrest you for truancy, whatever it is, right? If you're invited and you're there for the benefit of the property owner, you are an invitee. You could be a licensee, that's the third one, where you are invited onto the property of another, but not for the benefit of the owner. You're there for your own benefit. Okay. All right. So the thing about these three statuses is that different laws apply to them, but invitee and licensee are close enough that they are all owed a duty of care by the owner of the property, by the school district, by the team. Okay. So if they have a duty to care, which is a duty to protect, Austin's first claim is that they failed in their duty to protect him. Because he is an invitee, the school, the county, they had a duty to protect him. All right. His second one is the negligent assignment. This is the negligent delegation, negligent entrustment. This is literally specifically an assignment. The principal says to the agent, I'm going to assign you to do this thing, and it's inherently risky. It's inherently risky because it leads to conflict. Another sign that it might be inherently risky is if, had you not asked the person that you asked, you would have asked the security guard, or you would have asked an armed police officer to do the task. Well, we don't want to pay armed security guards and we don't want to bring in police. So I know, let's ask this kid, right? That's a sign that it is inherently risky. If had you asked somebody else, it would not have been this kid. It would have been somebody with a gun, okay, and a uniform. His third claim could be failure to implement security protocols, which is if those protocols would have captured the knife that Karmelo had, and the school just didn't implement them that day for whatever reason, then that is the proximate cause, meaning the immediate cause of Austin's death. Had the school been doing the security protocols that they had, right, that existed, that had been thought through and formulated, Karmelo wouldn't have had the knife and Austin wouldn't be dead. So those are his three claims where he could sue the team, he could sue his high school, he could sue the district. Okay, let's look at his surviving brother. Similar claims, but different fact patterns, okay? Here, this is a negligent assignment because he was given an ambiguous role with no training or protection, okay? So this is a slightly different version of negligent assignment from what his slain brother had, okay? For this one, the role is ambiguous. Go man the tent. Hey, Hunter, we need you to help out at the meet. Well, what does that mean? Was it his job to get Karmelo out of there? Was that expected of him? Did he know what was expected of him? Was it safe for him to assume that this is a part of the job, right? Without like a job description or a list of things, the role is too ambiguous. You put a 17-year-old mind, right? That's the negligent delegation, into an assignment that was so ambiguous that he could have thought anything or nothing was a part of the role. Who knows? The second claim that Hunter would have against, the team, the school, and the district is a negligent supervision, which means that he was exposed to escalating violence. Now, this is interesting because this is the claim of the person who's standing nearby. Okay, negligent supervision. I was exposed to violence without adult oversight, right? There was no adult that we could get to or that we were told was the person who was supposed to be supervising what was going on out here. I'm just a kid. Where was the adult oversight? Because you put me in this role, you exposed me to something that amounts to negligence. Okay. Now the last one, and this is really interesting. This is a claim, and let me tell you something, you guys. Texas is full of fantastic attorneys. Okay. So I am not the only one chiming in on this issue. You better believe that all three of these families are going to bring every single one of these claims, and there really are others, right? I stopped it at 3 for each, but there were maybe 6 or 7 claims that I could have made for each of these 3 boys against the school, the district, etc. Now, I will say with that, a school has a greater duty of care to its own students than to students from a different school. Okay, so that might change Hunter and Austin's estate. They have slightly different claims and a slightly tighter duty of care because it was their school that was involved. However, Karmelo too has a claim. It's just not as strong because of the differences in the duty of care. All right, so let's look at this last thing that Hunter has. Bystander recovery and failure to implement security protocols. Bystander recovery is a claim that a person who is close to the decedent can make if they had to witness the act. It only applies to like parents, children, and siblings. And even then, the question becomes, how close were you guys really, right? We don't have to worry about that here because Hunter and Austin, all indication is that these guys were extremely close, but not just that. Austin died in Hunter's arms. No kid should have to watch that, right? No kid should have to feel their dead brother's last breath leave their body and go limp in their arms. It's traumatic. You cannot undo that. This kid will be having flashbacks about this for the rest of his life. That's what bystander recovery is about. It's about compensating a very close relative who had, and you can just have seen it, right? Because of the negligence of the school or because of some of this agency liability, Hunter, right? I had to watch my brother die in my arms. I had to feel his body go limp when he took his last breath. This is designed for him to recover, okay? And you would couple that with failure to implement security protocols or one of the other agency problems, okay? This is also like if a little kid is in a car crash and has to watch something impale their mother, like a pole go through their mother's chest or something like that, and this kid is 5 and looking directly at this thing. I mean, it's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Okay, so these are the top 3, not the only 3, but the top 3, or some version or some hybrid of these claims is what I think Hunter has. Okay, so let me jump into Karmelo. Now, I want to say this about Karmelo. A lot of people will think he's the one who did it. He killed the other kid. But the way it actually goes is that if you are put into a situation where you are forced to use self-defense, the person who put you in that situation can be held liable for the outcome of that situation. So even though Karmelo is the one who stabbed, he has actionable claims. And I didn't get into this, but you better believe that these boys are going to sue each other. Karmelo's family is going to sue the twins. The twins are going to sue Karmelo's family. And the courts are going to have to deal with all of this, right? Now, sentiment is, people are very split on their sentiment about Karmelo, what he did, what he didn't do, what he should have gotten, what, right? Blah, blah. Just because you are put in a situation of having to use self-defense. Now, obviously, this depends on the strength of the self-defense claim. We don't know. That will continue to come out. But if it survives, Karmelo has these claims. Negligent delegation. Karmelo himself is a victim of whoever at Memorial's bright idea it was to tell these two 17-year-old twins to manage the tent. Right? Karmelo's like, I was minding my business. These two commandos, they thought it was a part of their job description to come over and harass me. Right? So what Karmelo is going to say, right, because he also has a negligent delegation claim, he's going to say, you guys put these two minors improperly in front of me to confront me. They didn't have the brain power. They didn't have the wherewithal or the forethought, because they're only 17, right, with incomplete brains, to manage the particular task. This is Karmelo's argument, right? I had no choice but to stab these people. I had no choice but to stab these people that you put in front of me, right? This is his claim. And you guys, the claim has stood in Texas. Karmelo will not be the first person to pioneer this claim, because he's also traumatized. He also ran away with a dead guy's blood on his hand. He also just spent a week in jail. right? This kid has actual damages too. Okay. The second one is premises liability. Now, this one people are not going to like because it says that Karmelo could have a claim against the county or the district for premises liability, meaning that something that the county or the district did or failed to do created an unsafe environment for Karmelo. Now, the unsafe environment could be that you told these two yahoos to police me. I don't feel safe when you've got 17-year-olds bossing me around, bullying me, pushing me, right? I heard a version today that Austin may have knocked. Well, the original rumor was that Austin had smashed Karmelo's phone. I heard another version that said, no, he didn't smash it, but he did accidentally knock it onto the ground. Who knows? Who knows? But these two guys thinking that they're in charge was the unsafe condition for Karmelo. Okay. So the third thing that Karmelo has, the third claim that Karmelo has is failure to implement security protocols. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. Considering he's the one with the knife, for him to say that they created an environment where violence could escalate, I don't know, this might be a little bit dubious, but technically, if he is a self-defender and an invitee, he does have this claim available to him. Failure to implement security protocols. Now, what that means is that the protocols existed, the school just didn't follow them. And that is not limited to metal detectors, right? Because as we saw 1 week later, they had a host of security protocols in place. Also, some cases have found that the absence of cameras and different things like that, sensors, patrol, I mean, all kinds of things could create an environment where violence could escalate. Again, telling these two kids with incomplete brains that they're in charge could lead to an escalation, right? So all three of these, and I think it's really interesting. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know how the facts are going to come out, but I think this is a really interesting case that Texas is going to have to deal with, and I'm here for it. I love it. We'll see what happens. All right, so to answer the question, is Frisco Independent School District liable for Austin Metcalf's death? I think I just showed you the fact, right? I played the video for you where the girl said that they were there working the event, and the little-known law of agency theory, which makes the district liable for the conduct of its agents. I say that the answer is yes. All right, so again, you guys, my name is Gray. My channel is Counsel Gray. Thank you for stopping by. If you like what you saw here, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification because I will be going live about this and other cases. And I want you to be there. I want you to get notified.